March 2006. West Coast Customs occupied 25,000 square feet in Inglewood. NTV cameras rolled daily. Celebrity clients lined up outside. The shop that started in a converted liquor store now employed 40 people and grossed 8 figures annually. Inside the office, lawyers sat across from Ryan Friedlinghaus with 3 different versions of the original partnership agreement. Each document told a different story about who owned what. One showed equal equity splits. Another gave Ryan controlling interest. The third mentioned profit-sharing percentages that didn't match either version. The discovery came during routine incorporation paperwork. What started as legal housekeeping became an investigation into the foundation of the entire operation. Nobody was stealing. Nobody was lying. The problem was simpler and more dangerous. The partnership that built West Coast Customs had never been properly documented. Ryan Friedlinghaus opened West Coast Customs in 1994 with money saved from his father's liquor store. 22 years old, no business degree, just a vision for what custom cars could become. The first shop sat in Laguna Niguel, Orange County. Wrong neighborhood for the work he wanted to do. He needed a team. Quentin Dodson delivered beer to the liquor store. Ryan talked cars with him between deliveries. Q knew hydraulics, knew fabrication, understood the lowrider scene that defined West Coast car culture. Ryan brought him on as the first hire. Dane Florence showed up one afternoon wanting hydraulics installed on his Impala. Ryan convinced him to try an air suspension system instead. Lighter, smoother, more reliable. Dane was impressed enough to join the crew. They called him Big Dane because car guys can't help themselves with nicknames. The 3 of them worked 16-hour days in a 3,000 square foot shop. They installed sound systems, painted candy finishes, fabricated custom parts. Good work, but nothing that separated them from 50 other shops in Southern California. Big Dane kept pushing Ryan to move. Orange County wasn't the market. The real car culture lived in Compton, Inglewood, South Central. Places where lowriders rolled down Crenshaw Boulevard and G-Funk made the '64 Impala an icon. In 1998, they relocated to Compton. The move changed everything. Shaquille O'Neal walked through the door 6 months later. He wanted custom work on a Suburban. The crew delivered. Shaq told his friends. Those friends told their friends. West Coast Customs became the shop where celebrities got their cars done. The work was legitimate. They weren't just bolting on aftermarket parts. They fabricated custom body panels, designed proprietary suspension systems, developed paint techniques that other shops couldn't replicate. The technical skill matched the growing reputation. By 2003, they'd moved again. Bigger facility in Inglewood, more staff, more equipment. MTV came calling. The network wanted automotive programming. West Coast Customs had the celebrity connections, the technical capability, and the camera-ready crew. Pimp My Ride premiered March 2004. The show made them famous. It also made the business exponentially more complex. Here's what the cameras didn't show. The original partnership structure was documented on handwritten notes and verbal agreements. Ryan founded the shop. Q and Big Dane came on early, contributed technical expertise, brought client relationships. They split profits informally based on contribution and need. It worked when they were 3 guys in Compton installing hydraulics. It couldn't work when they were a multi-million-dollar operation with TV contracts, celebrity clients, and proprietary fabrication techniques worth protecting. The incorporation process in 2006 required formal ownership documentation. The lawyers asked straightforward questions. Who owns what percentage? Who controls design decisions? Who holds rights to proprietary techniques developed on camera? Nobody had answers that matched. Ryan believed he owned controlling interest because he founded the company and drove the vision. Q and Big Dane believed they'd earned equity through years of technical contribution and client development. All three believed they were right because nobody had ever written it down properly. The real problem emerged when they found the conflicting documents. Somewhere along the way, someone had drafted partnership agreements. Multiple versions existed. None were signed. None were filed. None were legally binding. One version showed 60-40 split, Ryan majority, Q minority, Dane employee. Another showed 50-30-20, closer to equal partnership. A third mentioned profit sharing without specifying equity at all. The MTV contracts complicated everything further. Who owned the fabrication techniques developed on camera? The show paid West Coast Customs for the builds, but the intellectual property rights weren't clearly defined. If Q designed a custom suspension system that appeared on television, did he own that design? Did Ryan? Did MTV? The chassis blueprints raised the same questions. Whose signature appeared on which documents? Who could claim authorship of proprietary designs? When three people collaborate on a technical innovation, who owns the result? The lawyers couldn't move forward without answers. The business couldn't incorporate without clear ownership. The partnership that built West Coast Customs was legally undefined at the exact moment it needed legal clarity most. The lawyers identified the core problem within 48 hours. The issue wasn't just conflicting ownership percentages. The real fracture lived in a single clause about proprietary design rights. West Coast Customs had developed custom fabrication techniques on camera for Pimp My Ride. Chassis modifications, suspension designs, body panel fabrication methods, all documented in MTV footage, all potentially valuable intellectual property. The question, who owned those techniques? Ryan's position was straightforward. He founded the company. The techniques were developed under the West Coast Customs name. The business owned the intellectual property, and he controlled the business. Q and Big Dane saw it differently. They developed those techniques through hands-on fabrication work. Their technical expertise created the innovations. Collaborative development meant shared ownership of the resulting intellectual property. Neither side was wrong legally. Both interpretations made sense depending on which partnership document you referenced. The chassis design dispute became the focal point. West Coast Customs had developed a proprietary method for modifying unibody structures without compromising structural integrity. The technique allowed them to drop suspension components, widen wheel wells, and alter body lines while maintaining crash safety standards. Big Dane's signature appeared on the original blueprints. His fabrication work refined the process. But the designs were created in the West Coast Customs shop, using company equipment for company projects. Standard employment law would give the company ownership. But Big Dane wasn't a standard employee in 1999 when they developed the technique. He was a partner, even if the exact nature of that partnership was undefined. The custom wheel manufacturing process raised identical questions. Q had developed a method for creating bespoke wheel designs that could be fabricated in-house rather than outsourced. The process saved money and gave West Coast Customs a competitive advantage. Q's name appeared on the process documentation. His technical knowledge made it possible. But again, developed in the shop, using company resources for company clients. The MTV contracts added another layer of complexity. The network paid West Coast Customs for each Pimp My Ride build. The contract specified that MTV owned the footage and the show format. It didn't clearly address who owned the fabrication techniques shown in that footage. If a technique appeared on television, documented in detail, watched by millions, did that constitute public disclosure? Could it still be considered proprietary? Who had the right to use those techniques for future work? The tuning maps controversy emerged from the celebrity client work. West Coast Customs had developed proprietary engine management systems for high-profile builds. Custom calibration for Shaq Suburban, specialized tuning for other celebrity vehicles. Those calibrations represented hundreds of hours of dyno testing and technical development. They also represented relationships with specific clients who trusted specific technicians. When Q worked directly with a celebrity client to develop a custom tune, who owned that relationship? Who owned the resulting calibration data? If Q left West Coast Customs, could he take that technical knowledge with him? The lawyers found 3 different versions of the original partnership agreement, but they found something else too. Internal memos from 2003 discussing equity splits that didn't match any of the formal documents. Email threads about profit distribution that referenced percentages nobody could verify. Handwritten notes about who contributed what to which projects. Every piece of documentation told a slightly different story. None of it was legally binding. All of it suggested that the 3 founders had fundamentally different understandings of their business relationship. The incorporation process couldn't move forward until they resolved the ownership question. But resolving ownership meant determining who owned the proprietary techniques that made the business valuable. And determining that meant retroactively defining a partnership that had never been properly structured. The discovery happened in March 2006. By June, the lawyers were recommending mediation. By September, key personnel were having separate conversations with separate attorneys. The fracture that started with paperwork was becoming something else entirely. Big Dane left first. No announcement, no dramatic exit. He stopped showing up to certain client meetings in October 2006. By November, his name disappeared from internal project assignments. By December, he'd retained his own attorney. The departure was methodical. He documented every project he'd led, every client relationship he'd developed, every technical innovation he could claim contribution to. He didn't take tools or equipment. He took knowledge, the kind that lives in someone's head after 12 years of fabrication work. His lawyer sent a letter to West Coast Customs in January 2007. The letter outlined Big Dane's position on the ownership dispute. It also included a list of clients who'd worked directly with him, techniques he'd developed, and designs that bore his signature. The letter didn't threaten litigation. It established a paper trail for what came next. Q's situation was different. He'd been with Ryan since the beginning, the beer delivery driver who became a partner. The incorporation dispute reclassified his role from partner to senior employee. The legal distinction mattered enormously. As a partner, Q had equity claims and intellectual property rights. As an employee, he had a salary and whatever his employment contract specified. The reclassification wasn't personal. It was the inevitable result of trying to formalize a relationship that had never been properly defined. Q stayed longer than Big Dane. He kept working on builds, kept appearing in MTV footage, kept maintaining client relationships. But the dynamic had shifted. Decisions that used to be collaborative now came from Ryan. Projects that used to be assigned based on expertise now followed a chain of command that hadn't existed before. The shop floor split along invisible lines. Technicians who'd worked with Big Dane gravitated towards certain projects. Technicians loyal to Ryan handled others. Nobody was fighting. Nobody was sabotaging work. But the unified crew that built West Coast Customs was fragmenting into factions defined by legal disputes nobody wanted to discuss. The non-compete clauses became the next battlefield. Standard employment contracts include non-competes to prevent employees from immediately competing with former employers. But Q and Big Dane weren't standard employees. They were founders, being reclassified as employees retroactively. Could you enforce a non-compete clause on someone who helped build the company? Could you prevent them from using fabrication techniques they'd helped develop? The lawyers argued both sides. The answer depended on which version of the partnership agreement you referenced. Celebrity clients found themselves caught in the middle. Contracts specified work by West Coast Customs, but some clients had relationships with specific technicians. If that technician left, did the client follow? Did the contract allow them to follow? Shaq had worked with Big Dane on multiple builds. The relationship was personal. Big Dane understood what Shaq wanted, knew his preferences, had earned his trust over years of work. When Big Dane left, Shaq had a choice to make. The trademark battle emerged quietly. Who owned the specific techniques shown on Pimp My Ride? MTV owned the footage. West Coast Customs owned the business name. But the techniques themselves, the fabrication methods, the design approaches, the technical innovations, those existed in a legal gray area that the original partnership agreements had never addressed. By mid-2007, the shop that had operated as a brotherhood was operating as a business with all the complications that entailed. The work continued, the TV show continued, but the crew that built West Coast Customs was dissolving, one quiet departure at a time. The Department of Labor investigation started in March 2014. The timing wasn't coincidental. Former employees had filed complaints about wage violations during the ownership disputes. The investigation found what happens when partnership confusion cascades into employment practices. West Coast Customs had misclassified workers as independent contractors when they should have been employees. The misclassification stemmed directly from the unresolved ownership structure. If the founding partners couldn't define their own roles clearly, how could they properly classify the workers below them? The investigators found employees working on weekly salaries that translated to $6 per hour when you calculated actual time on the job. Custom fabrication doesn't follow 40-hour weeks. Builds run long. Deadlines compress. The crew worked the hours required to finish the job, but the compensation structure hadn't adjusted to match the company's growth. The settlement came to hundreds of thousands in back wages and civil penalties. The financial cost mattered less than what the investigation revealed. The same legal ambiguity that fractured the partnership had created exploitative labor practices downstream. Ryan emerged from the disputes as the sole face of West Coast Customs. His Twitter handle became @selfmaderyan. The narrative shifted. One man's vision built an empire. The story was cleaner that way, easier to market, better for the brand. The truth was more complicated. Ryan did found the company. His vision did drive the growth. But the empire was built by a crew, and that crew included partners whose contributions were being legally erased by incorporation documents that arrived a decade too late. Big Dane launched his own operation. Different name, same techniques, quieter approach. He focused on the work that made West Coast Customs legitimate before the cameras arrived. Lowriders, hydraulics, the craftsmanship that didn't need a television audience. Q followed a similar path. The client relationships he'd developed over 15 years didn't disappear when his employment status changed. The technical knowledge he'd accumulated didn't evaporate. He kept working, kept building, kept doing what he'd always done. The technical evolution diverged. Ryan focused on spectacle, celebrity builds, corporate partnerships, projects designed for maximum publicity. The West Coast Customs brand became synonymous with excess. Waterfalls in trunks, television screens on every surface. Builds that prioritized cameras over craftsmanship. The former partners pursued different work. They built cars for people who actually drove them. They developed techniques that improved performance rather than just appearance. They operated in the space West Coast Customs used to occupy before fame changed the mission. The franchise expansion began in 2015. West Coast Customs opened a 60,000 square foot facility in Burbank. International locations followed: Dubai, Berlin, Tokyo. The brand became global. The original Compton shop, the place where Shaq walked in and changed everything, became a memory. The building still stands. Different business operates there now. The garage where three partners built something legitimate before it became famous is just another industrial space in South Central Los Angeles. The fracture revealed a fundamental truth about success built on handshakes. Friendship works until the stakes get high enough that lawyers get involved. Brotherhood survives until someone needs to define it legally. Partnership endures until you have to write down who owns what. West Coast Customs survived because Ryan owned the name and controlled the narrative. The company that exists today is his vision, his brand, his empire. But the company that built the reputation, the shop that earned Shaq's trust and MTV's attention, that was something different. That was three people who understood cars and trusted each other enough not to write it down. The cost of that trust was everything they built together. Court documents filed between 2006 and 2009 tell the story the cameras never captured. The trademark filings reveal who claimed which innovations and exactly when those claims were made. Big Dane filed for trademark protection on 3 specific fabrication techniques in November 2007. The applications listed him as the inventor. The descriptions matched processes developed at West Coast Customs between 2001 and 2005. The filings didn't claim ownership of the business, just ownership of the technical methods. West Coast Customs filed counterclaims in February 2008. The company's position: techniques developed using company resources belong to the company, regardless of who performed the fabrication work. Standard intellectual property law supported that position. The problem was proving Big Dane was an employee rather than a partner when he developed those techniques. The celebrity client contracts exposed the deeper complexity. Shaq's 2003 Suburban build included a custom chassis modification that Big Dane designed. The contract specified work by West Coast Customs without naming individual technicians. But Shaq's subsequent builds requested Big Dane's specifically. The relationship belonged to the technician, not the company. When Big Dane left, those client relationships went with him. West Coast Customs couldn't prevent it because the original contracts hadn't anticipated the scenario. Nobody thought the crew would fracture. The MTV production contracts revealed something else. Pimp My Ride paid West Coast Customs a flat fee per episode. The contract gave MTV ownership of footage and format. It didn't address ownership of fabrication techniques shown in that footage. The network assumed the shop owned its own methods. The shop assumed the same thing. Nobody verified it legally. That assumption created problems when former partners started using those techniques independently. Were the methods still proprietary if millions of people had watched them on television? Could you claim trade secret protection for a process documented in broadcast footage? The will.i.am DeLorean incident in 2011 illustrated how tangled everything had become. The car was built at West Coast Customs. will.i.am claimed it was stolen. The car was found hours later using GPS tracking. No police report was ever filed. The entire event played out on Twitter. The incident looked like a publicity stunt. But the underlying question was real. Who owned the car? will.i.am paid for the build. West Coast Customs performed the work. But if payment disputes existed, if the build wasn't finished to specification, if the contract terms were unclear, ownership became complicated fast. The paper trail reveals what handshake agreements can't survive: growth, fame, money, and lawyers. Every successful partnership eventually faces the same test. Can the trust that built the relationship withstand the legal scrutiny that protects it? For West Coast Customs, the answer was no. The contract that fractured West Coast Customs revealed something every garage partnership eventually learns. Friendship works until the stakes require documentation. Brotherhood survives until lawyers ask who owns what. The shop survived by becoming something different than what the original crew built. Ryan's empire exists because he controlled the name when the partnership dissolved. The legacy isn't the cars, it's the lesson. Write it down before fame forces you to. Subscribe to see how other legendary garages handle the transition from crew to corporation.